Welcome to this edition of Recovery Monday right here on 99.3 KTIA. My special co-host, of course, is Lila Stafford. She is a certified counselor at Powell CDC up at Unity Point. And, of course, Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat watching the chat, is also with us today. And I want to welcome my special guest, Peter Komendowski. I'm going to try to say that right every time. And Peter is the president and executive director of the Partnership for a Drug-Free Iowa. And you can find out about that online at partnership@drugfreeiowa.org. Peter, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, appreciate you being here too. All right, let's start out with a little bit of how bad is drugs in Iowa with kids?
It's really bad when you think about some of the norms that we're establishing. When we look at the Iowa Youth Survey, which is a highly respected measure of attitudes of children, administered directly to children, we're learning that there are some trends that are getting better in terms of substance abuse, but we're seeing increases in things like it's cool or okay to be at parties with drugs or alcohol from 4.5% of sixth graders to 45% of 11th graders, which is over a 900% increase. We're seeing increases in can I find marijuana, pot, heroin, cocaine in my community, like 400% increases between 6th and 11th grade. So the norms that we're finding from research like the Iowa Youth Survey are that between 6th and 11th grade, we're seeing 400% plus increases in the availability, knowledge, and acceptance of drugs, alcohol, and substance abuse.
And does that come from a generation of parents like myself who used recreational drugs and alcohol and didn't think twice about what it said to my children?
You know, we had a different world we lived in. The drugs were different, probably less predatory, but there was something else that's available today that wasn't then, and that's social media and the internet. And that's allowed people to get into the lives of our children and influence them without parental involvement.
Well, yeah, you're right.
You said that there was a 400% increase
Right.
in the last year, 10 years, or what?
On any given year, if you measure those attitudes with a sixth grader, as the Iowa Youth Survey does, and the same attitudes with an 11th grader, that's the increase over those grades. And they've now done that test since about 2004 or 5. So there are 4 successive tests that still show that differential. That's not dropping.
So you're saying between 6th grade and 11th grade, it increases.
The average Iowa child ends up becoming more agreeable to using drugs, hanging out where there are drugs, and knows where to find drugs and what they're about now. It's a huge increase, 400 to 900% in the survey points that are being addressed by the Iowa Youth Survey. So that's a normalization. That's where kids are now thinking this is okay. Now, we didn't have the movies and the videos and the rap and the music artists talking about drugs and alcohol and violence that our children have today. You know, when we grew up, it used to be a huge, wonderful calling cry for parents. Do you know where your kids are?
Yeah.
And parents, boy, they knew. Don't cross the street. Where were you? Whose house? Well, if you apply that to the use of social media, how many parents know where their kids are today?
Yeah.
It's pretty hairy.
Yeah, because you're right. When they get in, when they're sitting in a chair watching a screen that has social media posts, they're living inside that computer. They're living inside the lives of all of those people that are on that computer.
But even if the parents say, I've got to know where you are on the computer, their friends are on the computer.
Right.
So that information's still getting out there.
Yeah.
Well, the average 11 to 18-year-old in Iowa today spends over 55 hours a week on social media, television, and video games. Now, the sadness of that is simple. If you look at the budget of a week, 168 hours in a week, and you take out 30 or 40 hours of school, 40 hours of sleep, and everything else, by the time no matter how you measure what everybody does, a parent's lucky to have 30 hours of family time, and a child rarely has 50 or 60 hours of time available to just hang out and do stuff. Well, when the majority of that free time, that discretionary time, is spent on social media and video games and the internet, where's the family in this equation? I was talking to a group of children at the Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp, and I asked them a question, and I saw a lot of aha moments in the crowd. I asked if anybody in the audience would come up and try and convince the whole crowd, everybody there, to agree on one thing. And a couple said, yeah, that this is over and we can all go play. Yeah, well, no, let's do something more difficult and let me take it on. I said, how do we feel about things like thou shalt not kill? And everybody universally said, that's a really bad idea. Killing is a bad thing. And then I asked, okay, now let's look at media. Why do children spend so much time on video games killing?
Yeah.
What makes it right as a game when it's not right as a human being?
Well, and the Bible clearly states that if you think it, you've done it.
There it is. Right.
I mean, God does not differentiate between the physical action and the thought of the physical action.
Absolutely correct. So looking at your question about, is it because of our generation? Probably because we grew up thinking TV was innocuous.
Yeah.
And then, man, do you remember when people said, I can't even set up my VCR, my child has to set the clock because I don't know how?
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of bells must have gone off and the people developing video games and apps to get kids? But the parents don't even want to know how to set up their clock. We've got a virtually untapped marketplace and the parents aren't supervising.
Well, I'll never forget. I was at a business. This is 1980. I owned a business that had a big screen TV in there. And we decided to watch MTV. And the number of my faith-based customers who said, you can't have that on. What do you got that on for? Yeah. That's horrible. That's the devil stuff. And we're talking just 34 years ago. Peter Komendowski is my guest today. He is the president and executive director of the Partnership for Drug-Free-Iowa.org. And if you're in a different state, there may be an organization like this within your state. But Peter, when you and I talked about that before, Iowa is really on the forefront of protecting our children from drugs and alcohol.
Absolutely. Over 20 years ago, Senator Grassley and a group of Iowans, including the support of Senator Harkin, founded an organization called Face It Together about the same time that the Partnership for Drug-Free Iowa was an alliance member of a national organization. And the Face It Together coalition, which is still intact as part of the partnership, basically went out to the communities and all the communities and asked people what the problems were. And they talked with business leaders, they talked with faith leaders, they talked with educators, elected officials, prevention and treatment people, and came up with a plan called the Blueprint for Healthy Communities, which really talked about how to build effective coalitions in Iowa communities to deal with the problems that affect our children's health and well-being. And they've been on this mission to the point now where we're actually doing a media literacy project with Dr. Gentile at Iowa State University. We have drug-free workplace programs. We have outreach programs for the faith community, and the faith teachings are going on in the evenings. And we have curricula for 6th to 8th grades in the public schools that have been used around the state. So we're one of the few states that's looking at the entire spectrum of how to affect the health of a community and making an investment not only in the youth and children, which is the most important one we're focusing on, but in the employers and the parents and family and faith community as well.
You know what I find is that by the time the kids get to high school, there isn't any information out there that I've seen. We concentrate a lot on the younger kids and getting them educated about drugs and alcohol, and then just kind of send them free after that. And then when they're in high school, really using, I don't know of anybody that's really educating them. Can you correct that, or?
Well, I can say that it's very difficult to look and say high school administrators and teachers don't care. But we do know that in order for teachers to do a great job, they really need the help of parents. Mm-hmm. And where we broke down in America, and a lot of people have pointed this, is that somehow that tangible connection of parents and teachers working together to raise a child has fallen apart. Now, I will say, when I was growing up, my generation, I have 2 boys. They're doing great, in my opinion, but there probably were times when I said, go play a video game or watch some TV, I have work to do. Mm-hmm. Where I shirked my responsibility as an adult. That time that I realize now was extremely precious. Now, I grew up believing that a teacher, if they sent the note home, they were right.
Yeah.
And I was disciplined. In this day and age, we don't give teachers or schools the power, nor do we give them children prepared to be as disciplined about how they behave and what they do as they used to be. Now, this is part of that parental breakdown. We need to empower teachers to do their work, and we need to give them the opportunity to do so. And so many teachers now, with the laws that exist, probably have a hard time getting involved in meddling with interventions with drugs and alcohol until it's really severe problem.
Yeah.
They can't just act on a hunch or out of caring. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that's because I don't think parents give teachers the power. I think they look at it as sort of the enemy. You know, I'm right, and that teacher has to do what they've got to do. Well, I don't want to really criticize an educational system. What I'm really talking about is the relationship between our communities and educators, and I think that's been divisive over the last 10 or 15
I think parents
years.
would have to look at themselves too, at how they're drinking and their
Yep.
drugs.
It's hard to say teachers need to teach them this stuff when the parents aren't helping at home.
Yeah.
Well, what about the state of Colorado and Washington? I mean, legalized recreational use of marijuana. What is that? That sends messages to everybody across the country.
It sends a terrible message. And just like a lot of mistruths that are out there, if you go to Colorado and you go to California and you start seeing what's going on there, you realize that some of the stuff is out of control. I was in Colorado with my son who has friends in Colorado, and we go skiing out there every winter. And this last year we went there when marijuana was legal. And I always said, listen, if you ever want to live in Colorado, it's a great place. Might be a good place to work. And I think in the back of his mind, he thought that it might be a great place because you got the mountains, the skiing. It's sort of a cool spot. But after our last trip, he said, you know, Dad, I can't live here. People are so stoned. He says, they're always high. I mean, it's not fun. Now, that was not what I expected to hear from my son. I was proud of him for saying it, but it's something you begin to realize.
How old is your son?
He is 24 now.
Okay. I think, the other thing, you've done a good job raising him. You've stood for something in your life. You've done a 360-degree circle. But also, I think about the time a student or a young person gets into that middle to late 20s, they start to smarten up. You know, it's not about being cool anymore. It's about paying the bills and being in love and, doing those kind of stuff.
But if you grew up in a community where it's okay, like in Boulder, I mean, it's just everybody does it and it's okay and no one questions it.
Lila, you'll probably back me up on this one. What we do know, and I'm rounding off the numbers, we know of the people that have problems with addiction to substances, whether it's alcohol or drugs, 80% of people in treatment started before they were 18 years of age.
Yeah, around 14 and 15 is what we're finding.
Right. So what we do know is if we can protect children through the age of 18, we could reduce substance abuse and the deleterious effects of alcohol use by 80%. And yet, it seems as if there's this conspiracy to legalize and create all these norms. Well, imagine the profits lost if 80% of the addicts went away.
Yeah.
If 80% of the alcohol consumption disappeared. And that's not hard to imagine because when you look at the world today, we think really weird about things like alcohol. If you drove down the road and your gasoline leaked, you'd probably go, man, I got to take this car in a shop. Or if you're leaking blood, you're going to the emergency room. Yet in Iowa, where we sold 61 million gallons of alcohol in 2008, they estimated 21.56% was drank by children under age.
Oh.
That's 8 million gallons of alcohol. Now, if that's a leak into our youth, that's extremely damaging. That's a crisis. If your bank account lost that percentage, you'd be running, get a lawyer, you're stealing from me. And yet we act as if that's an acceptable loss. And marijuana advocates talk about that the same way. Well, it's not as bad as alcohol. And I said, would you rather be shot by a 44 caliber pistol or a 22?
Yeah.
You're still hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So, the alcohol companies saying, hey, we don't do anything wrong. We don't sell to minors. But they're making 20% of the profit. They don't argue about that. Now, if you reduce substance abuse and you knock down that use and you stop if you don't get customers when you're selling addictive drugs before they're 18, you won't get them. Mm-hmm. It's a huge business.
Peter Komendowski is our guest. He is the president and executive director on Partnership for a Drug-Free Iowa. Partnership at drugfreeiowa.org is the website. We're going to take our first break, and I just want that number again. Out of how many millions? You said 8 million are drunk underage. Out of how many total millions consumed by Iowans?
61 million gallons of alcohol in 2008.
From Iowans?
Yep. We have 3 million Iowans.
Does that include beer?
Yeah, that's mostly beer.
Mostly beer.
It's about 59 million gallons of beer.
Okay. We're talking about how to save your kids and how to save your grandkids. And sometimes when I sit and do these kind of interviews, I feel a little hypocritical because I was part of the problem. for so long. But now the best thing I can do is just to bring the good news to you, to share what the facts are and show you the wreckage of my past in hopes that you'll be able to stop someone you love, someone young, your grandchild, your grandson, your granddaughter, maybe it's your child, stop them from going down this path. We're coming back live here on KTIA.
A father who is headed toward another heart attack. A woman who struggles daily with diabetes and her memory. A boy whose headaches keep him out of school. A mother who one morning discovers a lump. A girl whose condition defies diagnosis. You come to us because you need answers, but you also need more. You need understanding of what you're going through. You need comfort. You need to be treated as an individual, not a condition. You need to be included in your own care. You are the point of everything we do. That's why we're changing to Unity Point Health. It's a model of care that will help us work better together, where the physician who knows you best takes the lead, coordinating your care through every step, from the hospital to specialists to rehabilitation to health services in the home and in the community, to making sure the treatments are effective. By working as a team, we surround you with care, helping you manage your health and your conditions, guiding you to making better choices and living a healthier life. The point of Unity is you. Unity Point Health.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. Welcome back. It's Recovery Monday on this Monday, the 18th day of August in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and if I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. I love this job. I couldn't do it without you. Of course, my co-host, Lila Stafford, in the house. Can I just call you Grandma?
Yeah. And my nickname's Coco. She's going to call me Coco. That
Why?
means grandma. I used to have a Grandma Lila, and I loved her, and I want to be called Grandma Lila too. But I don't know. I just like Coco, and I think it's easier to say than Grandma Lila.
Okay.
You can call me Grandma.
Can Bob and I call you Coco?
Yes, or you can call me. You know what, though? That has a bad connotation because I used to use that name when I was drunk.
What's your name, Maya? Coco.
Yeah.
What's your name? Bob Monster at the Cat in the Hat watching the chat is here, and our special guest is Peter Komendowski, and Peter is the executive vice. No, see if I'm not reading it, I get it wrong. The president and executive director and the board of directors of a partnership for a drug-free Iowa. It's partnership at drugfreeiowa.org. Now, Bob, you found some interesting statistics that someone has put together on what's happening with the legalization of marijuana in the state of Colorado. Share it with us.
Well, some of what they say here is impaired driving, traffic fatalities involving operators testing positive for marijuana have increased 100% from 2007 to 2012. Now, it was legalized in 2013.
Yeah.
Majority of driving under the influence of drugs arrests involve marijuana and 25 to 40% were marijuana alone. Toxicology reports with positive marijuana results for driving under the influence have increased 16% from 2011 to 2013. So as you can see, it's on the rise in that aspect. They have some more statistics, if I can scroll down here.
If I might add, those statistical increases you see were solely attributable to the legalization of medical marijuana.
Right.
The recreational use, we know
Right.
it's even more dramatic now.
Right, and here it says in 2012, 10.47% of youth ages 12 to 17 were considered current marijuana users.
What percent?
10.5%, as compared to 7.5% nationally. Colorado ranked fourth in the nation, was 39% higher than the national average. Drug-related suspensions, expulsions increased 32% from school years 2008, 2009 through 2012, 2013. Vast majority were marijuana violations. So that's with youth. Now, adult, they say in 2012, 27% of college-age students, 18 to 25, were considered current marijuana users compared to 18.9% nationally. So we have 26.8, 18.9. Colorado ranked third in the nation, was 42% higher than the national average. So it kind of
And this was before it was legalized.
yeah, it's because it was legalized in 2013.
Yeah.
So, and this is an August report, but usually there's a lag in collecting data. But you can see that that's part of the reason why they legalized it was because that's the way people are thinking. There was just an increase and more of it was taking place.
Was it legalized? Now I'm confused. Was it legalized for medical reasons, or it was before?
It
and
was
then now it
2009 medical marijuana.
medical, yeah. And now you can just smoke it.
Buy it and smoke it anywhere.
Right. Actually, they started the medical marijuana in 2006. Okay, so they just commercialized it and expanded it from 2009 to present. And now 2013 to present, recreational.
There's some fascinating things. I was in Colorado reading the paper, having breakfast in Frisco, and it said how the community voted against allowing medical marijuana dispensaries in the town because they didn't believe that marijuana was truly medical, but they did allow recreational marijuana dispensaries.
Oh,
Go
come
figure.
on. Oh.
They didn't want to say it had any medical value, but they didn't want to stop the recreational sales.
Well, anyone that thinks that marijuana doesn't do anything to you, I have seen personally what it does. I mean, I've seen people who get violently sick from it, from using it for years, doubled up in the emergency room weekly and I've heard of other people doing the same thing.
Right.
It's not good.
And they have an emergency room marijuana admissions here.
Yeah.
From 2011 to 2013, through 2013, 57% increase in marijuana-related emergency room visits. Hospitalizations related to marijuana have increased 82% from 2008 to 2013.
And those are $8,000 every time you go to the emergency room because a lot of those people don't have insurance.
Right.
So
and here it says in 2012, the city of Denver rate for marijuana-related emergency visits was 45% higher than the rate in Colorado, the state itself.
well,
Last I heard, Denver has something like 5 times as many marijuana dispensaries as McDonald's and Starbucks put together. And it may even be 8 times. It's a huge multiple. It's a big business. This business of addiction is highly understated by the people that are making profits. You know, there was a guy in California that runs one of the biggest marijuana websites for finding your best deals on marijuana. He had one time said in an article in the Wall Street Journal, you give me a couple of $1 million in a state that legalized same-sex marriage and I'll have marijuana legal in a couple of years. You know, they're that arrogant that it just takes money to change the attitudes of people. When they got marijuana legal in Washington State and Colorado, the organizers of that effort said if they had realized that they could have pumped a little bit more advertising into Oregon and got it legalized, they would have done so. It's just an investment. You put enough money in there, we can convince enough people that it isn't going to hurt them, and then we get it legal.
Jill is asking on Facebook, is it illegal to drive under the influence of marijuana in Colorado?
Yes, at a certain level.
And how do they determine that?
They take a blood sample and then they can determine the amount. There's a per se for marijuana.
but then the blood sample takes several days to get back. I mean, they can't do
Right.
it on the spot. We've
Right.
talked about that at the treatment center, that it's not like they can tell, you know, when you blow into something,
Right.
like you can't do that.
Right.
So it takes a while.
It will
And the
take a
point you
while.
make is a great one, because what we're finding out is that those numbers that you're referring to about increasing in Colorado, that's coming from accidents that have some severe outcomes,
Yeah.
fatalities, because that's when they actually do the toxicology reports and find out that marijuana was a contributor. They're not able, because the expense to the general public is high for every traffic violation, to do a toxicology blood
Yeah.
test.
Yeah.
Bob, do you think that there will be technology around the corner that I'll take my finger and I'll put it in a little tube and it'll prick me and it'll take that blood, and in a matter of a minute or two, they'll be able to determine that on the spot?
Yeah, it'll get to that point. I mean, they have rapid DNA now. I mean, you never thought they could do rapid DNA. So they're working on other tests for drugs so that they have screening tests and that type of thing, but they're not confirmation tests. So yes, I guess the answer is yes. I
They're
don't know
going to
when.
have to, I think.
You know, I
If
have
it's
a
legal.
question that I'd like to ask you guys, because you've been around this for a while. You know, there was sort of this number they drew out of the hat in Colorado that said 25% tax on marijuana should pay the social costs. And already we hear rumblings that they're not just collecting the tax because the people are selling the drugs illegally because they don't want to pay taxes, but they're also hearing that that estimate is nowhere near reality. They might need to tax it more, but the problem is collecting the taxes. At the same time, people have said, sort of like the old speaking with forked tongue, that, you know, marijuana is not as bad as alcohol. Well, if marijuana is not as bad as alcohol, and they already recognize the minimum 25% tax for the social costs associated with it, and we're only taxing alcohol in Iowa at something like 7 or 8%, what should the tax be on beer? Should it be 30, 40, 50% to cover the social costs? What do you think from working in treatment?
Yes, I do think it should. I hadn't even thought of that before. Yeah, something has to pay for the social mishaps that happen. You know, the cost for the state and people that can't afford the emergency rooms and all of that. Someone's picking that up. And I think, you know, if you're deferred from it, they'll just find something else, though. I mean, if the taxes get high enough, people aren't going to pay it, and then they'll go to some other drug.
Well, I had a thought that, you know, if the beer companies realize that the marijuana producers and sellers are setting a precedent that they're paying a 25% tax for social costs, if that gets translated to beer companies, I bet you they put their lobbyists to work to stop the legalization of marijuana rather quickly.
Peter whoops.
That was a good try.
Komendowski is our guest, and he is the president and executive director of partnership at drugfreeiowa.org. Here's the thing that you said to me that just startles me. And tell me if I heard you right, okay? That in states where same-sex marriage has been either legalized or is desired by enough of the people that they can see it coming there, that's the next state that's probably going to start talking about legalizing marijuana.
You know, I hate to combine issues politically, but I will, because they pointed out the things I heard from people anecdotally in Colorado were same-sex marriage, President Barack Obama getting the largest percentage of vote. If we can see a liberal trend in a state, we know that we can use advertising to facilitate reform of laws to allow for the legalization of marijuana.
Whoa.
Now, it's an important thing to remember here. In the states that have made it legal, they have laws that allow for referendums by the public. So that if you have enough money to put into it, you can put it up for a general vote and bypass the entire electoral process of your elected officials. In Iowa, our legislators have to open the floodgates.
Yeah.
Now, a couple did under the guise of medical marijuana this year. They made a little inroad with marijuana oil, which is scary because marijuana oil is not easily discernible from THC oil without a test, and these new e-cigarettes can be used to smoke marijuana oil discreetly without being caught. So believe me, marijuana people know that if you allow marijuana oil as medicine, you've now made it impossible for law enforcement to start doing a test for everybody that has marijuana oil. Our state's working very hard and diligently to manage that through public health. But that's what we face, this kind of weird smoke and mirrors thing. So they sense that as soon as we liberalize a state, whether it's same-sex marriage or a certain presidential candidate getting elected or anything else, we can see that the environment is ripe for the opportunity to invest the advertising money it takes to legalize marijuana, because that's an area where there's huge profits.
And when you want to define liberal or conservative, it takes an old political talk show host to figure this one out, Robert. Liberal follows this line of thinking: if it feels good, I want it. And darn you for trying to step in my way. Conservative thinking is it may feel good, but it's a short-term problem. I'm sorry, a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
I don't disagree with your synopsis. Now, I've had to weigh a lot of places that I sit, and I don't sit on the Democrat or Republican side. I sit in the policy side to protect children. So there might be things, if a person wants to drink too much as an adult, if they don't get in the car and drive or endanger somebody, and if they have the wherewithal to cover their health care costs, I'm not inclined to say I'm going to legislate them out of that opportunity to hurt themselves, even though I personally don't like it and don't think it's a good idea. Problem is when we allow adults to do things they feel they have an inalienable right to be able to do based on our Constitution, they believe that somehow that a 13, 14, or 15-year-old child understands the same logic about rights and laws that they do, and that's not the case. We're responsible for raising those kids, and we're responsible for setting those rules, and a lot of people that want these things liberalized and legalized do not want to take the responsibility to somehow create a barrier between adult use and habits and underage access.
But you said a minute ago, and correctly so, that you don't want to cross political and get involved in that conversation. But here's where my itty-bitty brain goes. Wait a minute. You're trying to get a liberal society to care about children when the largest genocide in the history of mankind is done because it was a mistake. I don't want to be pregnant. I don't care about children. I only care about me. It's me, 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 me.
No, there are a lot of Republicans that think the same way.
What?
Me, 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 me.
Not when it comes to pro-life. Do you know any pro-choice Republicans?
Yeah, I mean that's one issue on that side. I don't want to get into politics because we're gonna end up in a big fight here, even though I'm Republican. But
See, I think the issue is that if it becomes a political battle, we're feeding right into the big business concept of legalizing addiction. Is we can raise the issue, but if we incite the general public, we've got to be careful how we do it.
Powell CDC brings you this program, and there's some fun stuff coming up. Lila will tell us about that next when we return on KTIA Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Welcome back to Recovery Monday, brought to you by Powell CDC, broadcast live across America on the American Family radio stations, as well as locally here on 99.3 KTIA. Lila Stafford with Powell, well, we just call her Coco now, with Powell, and you've got some announcements for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up a couple things that Powell's going to be doing in the near future. One of them, there's an organization called Des Moines Move, and it's a neighborhood party. And last year, this Des Moines Move goes to different areas around Des Moines each year and has a party. And last year it was around Drake. There were 10,000 people that came to that and celebrated. And this year it's going to be around Powell, which is 9th and Penn and University around there, or East 9th. So that is Sunday, September 14th, between 1 and 5, this Des Moines Move party. And Powell is having a party before that. A couple things. We're having a run that morning. The registration's at 8, and the run is at 9 o'clock, and that's just on the north side of Powell. And after that, we're having a bike ride, and people are meeting at the park, down Union Park, down the street. There's a gazebo there. We're meeting there. And you register before you online at getmeregistered.com, and there's a bike ride that starts there and goes to Saylorville and back. And registration's at 9:30, and the bike ride's actually at 10:30, from 10:30 to 12, and then you'll be ready to celebrate in the party, that Des Moines Move party. And then we also have a phone-a-thon for anyone that's been associated with Powell that wants to help do a phone-a-thon, and you call to get money for Powell, and that is starts Tuesday, September 16th through Friday the 19th, and you can just call Powell 263-2424 if you want to participate in that. And then October 11th, Powell's having a big picnic at Waterworks Park from 12 to 4.
Wow.
And that's fun. We usually have between 400 and 500 people that come to that.
My phone's going to blow up during that phone-a-thon. Your husband always calls me.
Yeah.
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 Always calls me. I can't say no to him. Don't tell him.
Well,
I
we
said
always
that,
do it at his place too. I mean, his Strategic
office.
America has
Yeah.
always opened up their doors for us to call from there.
That's awesome. All right, Lila, thank you. Make sure you keep bringing those announcements our way. Peter Komendowski is our guest today. He is the executive director and president of an organization called Partnership at drugfreeiowa.org. And if you live in another state besides Iowa, you might want to Google this. There may be other organizations like this in your state, or maybe God is calling you to start an organization like this, to partner up with us in Iowa. So you in Kansas or Missouri or New Jersey or Washington or wherever you are, maybe you can start your own partnership at drugfreenameofyourstate.org. Get a hold of Peter, and he'll tell you just how things like that are done. So I'm hearing a trend. That when you have liberal states, you end up with legalized marijuana. You end up with gay marriage being legal. In the state of Iowa, you end up with more casinos per capita than any place other in the country. And now we might be seeing legalized marijuana right behind it.
Well, what we do see is that the legalization of marijuana in Colorado has created a whole new source of supply for marijuana in Iowa.
Ooh.
Iowa Public Safety has put out reports that say they're performing interdictions where they're seizing marijuana moving through and into the state of Iowa that they can prove comes from Colorado. So every other state that's legalized it is already a threat to the pipeline of drugs coming into Iowa and our children. So, sometimes it's like a whack-a-mole game.
Yeah.
We may not be able to turn off other states.
Yeah.
We may not be able to cure what we perceive as everything we want fixed in the world, but we can decide that if keeping drugs and alcohol out of our children's lives long enough so their brains are developed and they're healthy enough to make wise decisions and build that better world that we haven't done such a great job of to date, we need to stand up and put up some barriers that say we're not going to let marijuana in the home, in the communities, in the schools, or alcohol, these other drugs. And that's going to take the work of parents along with legislators and along with teachers and along with the faith community. I mean, it's really one of these clear and present dangers that it's just not something we should talk about over coffee or just for 1 hour a week. This should be a dialogue going on every day because this is such a tremendous danger to our youth. And we're seeing such an increase in their not being afraid of these things that are extremely dangerous to their future.
But when I was in middle school, now you're going back to the 60s, when I was in middle school, and the late 50s, they were talking about this stuff then.
Yes.
Just say no, said Mrs. Ronald Reagan. Just say no. And I'm just trying to be a devil's advocate. You know I agree with you. But it's not working. Whatever we do in this society, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. You know, you go to the old driver's ed and they show you these horrible movies with people being decapitated and blood all over. Everything's going up.
I'll tell you what, though, I never sit in the front seat with anyone else because of one of those movies from high school.
Well, the fact is let's take a look at a little bit of tact and another view. There are people that study happiness. Mm-hmm. And measures of happiness. And they've figured out that happiness isn't how many cell phones you have or how many televisions you have. It isn't even how much beer you drink. Do you know what happiness is most directly related to in all of the studies? Time spent face to face with other people, doing stuff like we're doing here. And we have a whole lot of things that have changed in the last 30 or 40 years that are taking people away from each other, that are putting them into TVs and computers and cell phones. Yeah. And they're not bad things. I look at technology like a hammer. Build a house with it, it's a great thing. Hit somebody in the head with it, not such a good idea.
All right, let's go to the phones where Frank's on the line. You put your headphones on, you'll be able to hear him. Frank, go ahead. You're live on KTIA.
Hey, I want to know how your guest would fight these two things that's going on. First, the libertarian movement that I don't think wants to stop at just legalize marijuana. I think they want the total legalization of all drugs. That would be the first thing. And then the second thing is this propaganda that somehow the reason why drugs are addictive is because they're not pure and they're cut up with a bunch of other things. But the biggest pandemic going on right now is pharmaceutical drug addiction, and I would say that's the thing that would be the purest cut. So how do you fight this propaganda machine out there?
All right, Frank, I appreciate your call, and I'll have Peter answer your question.
Well, you make a really good point. It is a propaganda machine. Propaganda machines are driven by goals. And in the case of marijuana, it's profits, and huge amount of profits. I was talking with a gentleman in Colorado a couple years ago, and he candidly said, I looked at getting a McDonald's franchise, a Dunkin' Donuts franchise, all these other business ventures. I don't smoke marijuana, but it was the most profitable business that I could get into at the time. Now, the one way to stop things is to get people to quit buying them. If we recognize that this is a danger and that most of the promotion of liberal drug use, the abuse of pharmaceuticals, the synthetic drugs that are being done are propagated by people that are predatory, especially to our children, for the purpose of profiting off those predatory techniques. If we know this, we need to stop the use of these drugs. We need to educate our children, spend more time with them, keep them off the streets, do everything we can to let people know what this threat is. Because we do fight an active base of propaganda, and it's funded by an extremely profitable business.
Well, and it's also funded by the accuser. This is the opposite of everything God wants for our children. No mind control, no freedom of this. We're supposed to raise our children in the way. And when people don't do that, then the accuser automatically gets a hold of them, and that's the road they run down. So wouldn't we be smarter and save a whole bunch of money by just, this is tongue-in-cheek, by just making the entire country Christian, and it is our law that you have to be Christian, and if not, get the heck out of Dodge, go someplace else?
You know, whether it's Christian or Buddhist, if you listen to the Dalai Lama, who, by the way, is a pretty cool dude with philosophy, eats meat and a balanced diet, and they don't drink alcohol or do any drugs, you know, or whether it's Christian faith, You know, the whole idea of respecting our bodies, respecting this potential we have to enjoy our lives and to nurture a healthy community is completely in contradiction with doing drugs or alcohol.
But there's no social media explaining any of that or telling young kids what you can do in place of. None. I have not seen any of it.
That's true.
No
that-
advertising, no social media where they're playing games about things like that.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Because that isn't financeable because it's not profitable. We're coming back with Peter and Lila and Bob and me and Ryan and Carl next on KTIA.
A father who is headed toward another heart attack. A woman who struggles daily with diabetes and her memory. A boy whose headaches keep him out of school. A mother who one morning discovers a lump. A girl whose condition defies diagnosis. You come to us because you need answers, but you also need more. You need understanding of what you're going through. You need comfort. You need to be treated as an individual, not a condition. You need to be included in your own care. You are the point of everything we do. That's why we're changing to Unity Point Health. It's a model of care that will help us work better together, where the physician who knows you best takes the lead, coordinating your care through every step, from the hospital to specialists to rehabilitation to health services in the home and in the community, to making sure the treatments are effective. By working as a team, we surround you with care, helping you manage your health and your conditions, guiding you to making better choices and living a healthier life. The point of Unity is you. Unity Point Health.
See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care. Visit emetro4.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetro4.com. Visit emetro4.com today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Okay, we're back on this 18th day of August in the Lord's year 2014. Peter Komendowski is my special guest. He's the president and executive director of an organization called Partnership at drugfreeiowa.org. And in your state where you live, there are other organizations like this. Search them out and find out how you can help. All right, I don't want to be the party pooper, but I want to make a statement if I can. I listen to you and your passion, and it is genuinely, it's genuine, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I don't feel like you're just trying to sell something because, you've got a title behind your name. But I sit here, and I'm 55 years old, and I came up in the drug era. Okay, we were smoking doobies outside the public library when we were in the 6th and 7th grade, and as long as we didn't get caught, it was pretty cool. And very few of the other kids around thought there was anything wrong with it. And then you get movies like the Bikers movie, Peter Fonda, yeah,
Yep.
and they just pot's great. And then you get High Times at Ridgemont High, and you get Belushi's movie, the college one. It just seems to me like we're fighting a losing battle. Percentages are up of kids using drugs at an even earlier age. We're now having states legal. I mean, Peter, your message is don't do drugs, and society says do them. In fact, you can buy them here.
Even though there are negatives, Mac, look at the movie stars that have died due to overdose of drugs, alcohol,
Yeah, but that's never going to be
combination.
me, they say to themselves. That'll never be me. I'll never use that much drugs.
Sure. You can reason. Can reason wrongly.
The accuser will allow you to reason anything away.
Yeah, but with the right money, the right advertising, the right people, you can change people's minds. Just in a negative way, like we were just talking about the sugar. All the grain companies that got together and figured out that they know how to put enough sugar in there, enough oil to make you so you want more of what they're making.
Yeah.
You know, you get enough of those people together that will fool the public. If you could do that in a positive way with people, I don't know where the money's coming from, though. I guess we're back to the same thing. Where's the money coming from, too? Because it's you've got to have a big people with big money to change, I think,
But give me
policy.
an example. Give me an example in our lifetime where that type of philosophy has worked. What war on blank have we won?
Well, it works.
Smoking. Well,
it works with some, Mac. It does work with some. They need somebody to tell them that something is bad, and some people will believe that.
Smoking. I don't know what the numbers are, but for a while anyway, I think it went down. The numbers went down because the public policy was, and you can't smoke in buildings anymore. All of that helped.
You know, America is a great country built by people looking for freedoms, and especially religious freedom. And it might be safe to say we're not just a Christian country, but a very inclusive country. But we have the right to build the future we want, whether it's a factory, a farm, or the way our communities are built so our children are safe. It doesn't defy any basic principle of living to say we have to protect our children from these drugs, and that maybe as a parent, part of our sacrifice is to say we just can't have this legal. I think we've grown up in a very privileged culture, and our generations, I look at Parkersburg, Iowa as this really interesting thing. If you felt tornadoes were dangerous, why rebuild in Parkersburg? Move somewhere where there's no tornadoes. Well, people do rebuild because they have human spirit and they believe that they can hang together and make things happen. Well, drugs are like tornadoes. They go through a community. Some people get destroyed. Some people just damage, and other people it doesn't even touch. And those are people like you and I. They're saying, hey, we did all this. It didn't kill us. But at the same time, do we really recognize the casualties that we did see, the people that were burnouts, the people that did die from overdoses? Do we really look at the casualties from our wars, suffering from post-traumatic stress? There's just this huge amount of things in America to care for. And I believe the same way we don't leave a person on a battlefield somewhere injured, we don't leave an American behind, we look at the people suffering with addiction and in trouble like a casualty of a war, and we can't leave them behind. Nor should we continue to propagate problems that we can stop that create so many casualties. And the casualties from alcohol and substance abuse are greater than any war we've ever fought.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm so honored to partner up with Powell, because they are willing to say, let's do a show. Let's do a show once a week. Let's bring in all these people who can say, I did it. It didn't work. Please don't do it again. Guys like you who are spending your entire life passionate about making sure that our kids don't use drugs. So there are some people, Lila, you talked about where's the money come from. There are some people that are out there doing it. But I got to tell you, we're heading for a society that the accuser has much more weight, much more pull than anybody else does. I'm going to make a political statement. Sorry if you don't agree, but we have a president that follows the accuser. And you can just see all of the laws and everything that he's done since he's been elected. You talk about brainwashing us. You want hope? You want change? You want things for the better? And there goes the administration. Now, do I believe the president single-handedly hurt this country? Yes, I do. Because low-information voters believe what he says. Low-information voters say, oh, Bob, that stuff you said about marijuana and that's not true. That's just propaganda they put out there to try to scare us. I've been smoking pot since I was 9, and it's... Right? We still glorify drug use in Hollywood, in movies, on television. We still glorify cigarette smoking, not as much, Lila, I will agree. And we still glorify alcohol use.
But I don't think it helps to pull to say President Obama did this and this. It's like, you don't need to be accusing anybody of anything. Let's just start working to help.
I have an opinion on that. I do believe that our presidents today, and I'm not an expert, but I've been around long enough to watch a bunch of elections. I think they're like a Jay Leno or David Letterman. Mm-hmm. I think they're a puppet of an entire party and a lot of lobbyists and a lot of other people. And I think that many of them, and I did really think Barack Obama was sincere in wanting to do some really good things. And I can see a lot of the things he talked about before he got elected. And he was vehemently against marijuana legalization and against alcohol use and wanted to do a lot of good ideas. But then he gets in a position where he has to work with a team, most of whom are invisible to us. And now he gets all the blame too. And I'm thinking we've got a Jay Leno there. We had a guy, and he's been used by a lot of people.
You bet.
To
I
manipulate
agree.
the American people.
I agree.
To get us away from realizing what's important and what we have to do.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I know you're uncomfortable with politics, Lila, so I'll shut up now. All right, Peter, I want to thank you for being here. I love your passion. Anything I can ever do for you, let me know. I've just got one simple story, and that's that I drank for 16 years, and finally I gave it up. And through the help of a 12-step program and wonderful people like Lila and her husband and the other 1,000 people that surrounded me, I've been sober for 1,562 days. And I think the way I feel right now, I think I'm going to make it to 1563, although you make me mad, Coco. I'm just telling you. Anyway, thank you for being here.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bob, thanks for being here. We'll see you Friday on The View from a Pew. And until I see you again, do me a favor, would you? You've heard a lot of negative talk today, and I'm sorry, but we got to talk about this stuff. So do something wonderful for yourself right now. Maybe cut an apple open and eat a half of it. Maybe go buy yourself a chocolate bar. And then tonight when you lay your head on your pillow, forgive that person that you just can't forgive, that's taking up space in your brain and living for rent-free. Remember, forgiveness is the key to happiness. See you tomorrow.